Score more with the college-branded Venmo debit card and earn up to 5% cash back with Venmo Stash. Got paid back? With the Venmo debit card, you can instantly access your balance and spend on what you want, like game day snacks, gear, tickets, and more. The more you do, the more cash back you can earn. Plus, there's no monthly fee or minimum balance. Sign up now at Venmo.com/collegecard. The Venmo MasterCard is issued by the Bancorp Bank N.A. Select schools available. Venmo Stash terms and exclusions apply at venmo.me/stash terms. Max $100 cash back per month.
Good morning. It's Tuesday, March 31, and this is the Brussels Playbook podcast. The vibe in Brussels today, well, it's electric as the EU starts preparing people for a new energy crisis that could be around the corner. And also on the pod, foreign ministers are meeting in Ukraine to mark the anniversary of the Bucha massacre. And the Committee of the Regions is thinking big, very big, with plans for a €3.6 million to be spent on new digs. I'm Zoya Sheftalovich, and with me today is our senior EU politics editor, Ian Wishart. Hey, Ian.
Hello, Zoya.
Ian, what's your favourite Brad Pitt movie?
What, was he in Top Gun or anything like that?
That's not Brad Pitt. That's
no,
Tom Cruise.
I don't think I've ever seen a Brad Pitt movie.
Oh, Jesus Christ, Ian. You need an education. Mine is Burn After Reading, which is a Coen Brothers flick.
But you probably should say why you're asking me that question.
Well, Brad Pitt is in Brussels right now filming a film.
Exciting.
Yeah, he shut down the Parc Saint-Quentin all of the day yesterday, so no one could go running through it, and the museums were closed. Devastating.
Well, we look forward to watching that, don't we?
Can't wait. Let's get on with the news. Let's start with something that's probably going to hit people pretty directly at their hip pockets. Brussels is basically telling Europeans that they may need to travel less to save money on fuel and to essentially not run down the supplies of energy that Europe has.
This is quite dramatic, isn't it, for the European Commission to be, well, it's sort of via governments, I think, telling governments that they should consider asking their citizens to travel less and to use less petrol.
Yeah, definitely. We're seeing shades of previous energy crises. The last one was the one that we had in 2022-23 as a result of the war on Ukraine. And basically, this is all about the fallout in the war in Iran. So the fear is that we're going to head into a pretty prolonged disruption of energy supplies. And that's being driven as well now by the fact that the Houthis in Yemen, who are funded by Iran, who've said that they're going to be entering the group chat and taking out potentially the Red Sea crossing point. So that could make the crisis even worse than the choke point in the Strait of Hormuz.
So what we're talking about today is this letter from Commissioner Dan Jorgensen, who you interviewed for this podcast last week.
Yeah, he's a friend of the pod.
Yeah, that's what we say. And he's saying that if countries need to act, they should focus on cutting demand in transport. This is a letter, by the way, that's not been made public, has it? We obtained this letter.
That's right. It's basically this letter that our colleague has got his hands on, which is being sent to EU ministers saying that they need to figure out ways to reduce the demand because on the supply side, the Commission is doing what it can, but there is a limit to what it can do because of the limitations in terms of these choke points. On the pricing side, they're doing what they can to lower prices so that it doesn't hit households quite so much, but there needs to be more action on demand.
Is this an EU competence, do you think? Is this not for national governments to tell their citizens, work remotely, make speed limits lower? Why is the Commission getting involved in this? Obviously, they've got to say, they can say based on the research of the way the oil price is going, but it just strikes me as an interesting thing that the commissioners think that they should step into national politics like this.
Yeah, I think what this gives us is an indication that this is probably, well, it's gearing up to be a pretty significant crisis. And the Commission takes over. So there are a lot of things that are national competences that the Commission steps in when it becomes that kind of larger issue. And we saw that with COVID as an example, when the Commission stepped in and was like, okay, yes, health is not an EU competence. Yes, it is a national competence, but we're going to step in here and buy up mass amounts of vaccine.
I guess it's when all member states are affected by the same thing and affected pretty equally that the Commission can step in like that. We saw it with COVID and also with, at the start of the Ukraine crisis when energy prices went so high.
Yeah, but it's obviously still all voluntary. No one is making any orders. The Commission isn't sort of saying this is how much energy you may use, now cut. They're just saying these are some options that you should look at to help bring down that demand. And part of it is also because some countries, so Poland as an example, have been cutting their excises, their fuel excises, and that can also increase demand because it effectively reduces prices so, people can afford to pay.
But I can't imagine the Commission ever putting out requests like that to its member states?
Well, I mean, we'll see what happens over the coming days, because this crisis is one that is looking pretty worrying at that EU level, and we're starting to hear whispers of things that are being discussed, which may look quite severe by the time this crisis kind of comes along.
I think what brings it home to me, I mean, neither you or me remember the 1970 oil shock.
Before my time.
Yeah, and that was when, I mean, I think we both remember seeing, or can see now sort of the nostalgic film of people who like filling their cars up with petrol and not being able to get to the petrol station. At that point, the price per barrel quadrupled because of the oil embargo in 1973. And I find it scary that experts are saying, actually, this time could be worse than that.
Yeah, and this is something that Brussels is alive to. I think those comparisons are being made in the Parlement as well as in national capitals around Europe. And basically everyone's trying to get ahead of the crisis and do what they can to reduce the impact when or if it hits. And the message is pretty clear. Look, if this conflict drags on, then Europe is going to need to adapt and adjust, and we'd best start doing that now.
Yeah, rather than panicking.
Exactly. Right, Ian, over to Ukraine now. We've got an informal Foreign Affairs Council that's taking place there today, and the expectation is that around a dozen foreign ministers from EU countries around the bloc are going to be on the ground, and they're going to be joined by the EU's top diplomat Kaja Kallas, their Ukrainian counterpart Andriy Sybiha, and there's going to be also actually a smattering of education and transport ministers as well.
And the reason they're there today is because it's the fourth anniversary of the Bucha massacre, which was one of the most horrific events of the war in the early days, actually.
That's right. This is the Bucha massacre, where the Russian forces occupied the town of Bucha, just on the outskirts of Kyiv, for about a month back when the war first kicked off in 2022. It was horrific. So the things that we saw once those troops were expelled by the Ukrainians were truly, astonishing things. So there were mass executions of civilians. Around about 450 civilians were killed there. And there were those satellite images that we saw of civilians being tied up and dead on the ground. There's evidence of rape and other atrocities. So it really is a horrific situation that happened there. And so now this is the fourth anniversary commemoration, and they commemorate it every year on the 31st of March.
So a big group of foreign ministers from the member states are going there today.
That's right, yeah. And the ICC, which is the International Criminal Court, and Ukrainian prosecutors have launched war crimes investigations into what happened at Bucha and elsewhere. But the Criminal Court cannot investigate the crime of aggression because Russia is not a member party to the court.
Right, but there's something else. There's a special tribunal for the crime of aggression against Ukraine, isn't there? And that's going to be a focus of the meeting today.
That's right. So this tribunal, the framework for it has been already kind of decided. That was decided last year. And now what's holding things up is that the Ukrainians need more countries to get on board. So we've heard from our reporting that around about 10 countries are on board, but the Ukrainians want more. We don't know which those 10 countries are yet, by the way, Ian. And the thing that I should mention here is that the difference between this and other war crimes investigations is that here they focus on individuals at the political level who launched the war on Ukraine.
Mm-hmm. Like the Nuremberg trials then?
Yeah, exactly right. So this is modeled on that, and we're talking about holding Vladimir Putin accountable.
And this is the thing that the European Commission made an announcement on a few days ago when they said that the EU itself would be one of the founding members of this tribunal. Is that right?
That's right. And they've actually said that they're putting some money behind it. So 10 million euros is going to be put into the kind of fund to help this get off the ground. But again, the Ukrainians need a fair bit of money because this is a pretty significant investigation and it requires resources.
It's a horrible thing to say, but obviously the war in Ukraine is still going on while the world's attentions have moved away to the Middle East. And, this is just a reminder of that. And I suppose that's why they have to keep marking these events, why it's important for the EU to send their ministers there and have meetings there, keep talking to Zelensky. This is still going on despite everybody looking at Iran and the Middle East.
Yeah, and, it's interesting because Zelensky himself kind of acknowledged this and has been acknowledging the fact that attention has turned to the Middle East. And he's trying to use some of that momentum from the war in Iran to also help his cause with the Middle East countries, because traditionally those Gulf countries have been seen as more aligned with Russia, with Moscow. what he's saying now is, hey, Gulf countries, we can help you protect yourselves with drones and we can help you unlock the Strait of Hormuz. So one of our colleagues, Veronika Milkazorova, she was on this group chat with Zelensky and some other reporters that basically showed the extent to which this is the case. Zelensky was saying in that group chat that he has offered to his Gulf counterparts and to others to help them learn from Ukraine's experience unblocking the Black Sea when, early in the war when that was blocked and Ukraine couldn't sell its grain and there were big problems on that. So he said, you can use our expertise, we can help you and we can unblock the Strait of Hormuz. So it's quite a clever tactic by Zelensky.
And obviously the link between these two wars is the oil price, which brings us back to what we were talking about at the start of the podcast. So,
Exactly. And Russia, because of course Russia is helping Iran.
Yeah. Okay, Zoya, should we move to our last story today? It's about this new plenary hall in the Committee of the Regions. What do you know about the Committee of the Regions?
One of my favorite committees. My top 5 at least.
What are your other 4?
I love all committees. I won't name my darlings, but I do genuinely like the Committee of the Regions. It's full of mayors. I love a mayor.
So shall we tell people what the Committee of the Regions is, first of all?
Basically, it's an EU body that represents local and regional authorities. So it's got mayors, deputy mayors, local politicians.
Very important when it comes to talking about the long-term budget of the EU because a lot of the money goes via the regions.
That's right. It's what we call cohesion funding because they're all going to bridges and roads and whatever in various regional areas. So that's the body. And basically, it's got kind of 6 plenaries a year that they hold. So that's 6 big meetings where everyone comes together in a year. And they've got this big plan to spend around about 50 million euros on renovations. And as part of that plan, there's this idea of building a 450-seat plenary hall, which they're officially calling a conference hub, which is going to cost 3.6 million euros of taxpayer money.
And I think according to the story that we've got out today from Gerardo Fortuna, he's saying that a lot of the staff and unions are up in arms because they weren't aware of this plan before now. I think one of the officials at the union described it as megalomaniac, these plans.
Yeah, well, I think the fact that they haven't been informed is what he was referring to. But the thing is that it's still not public. So Gerardo has got his hot little hands on this information and it's out there now because of our reporting, but it still hasn't really been explained or explored with the relevant parties as far as we know, unless they've done it in the last 24 hours. But the reason that it's important is basically it does kind of lead to questions being raised about whether this is a good use of taxpayer money or not.
Event at the Committee of the Regions on April the 14th, Zoya, continuing the discussion on the coexistence of large carnivores with humans.
That sounds like a really good event. Which kinds of carnivores? Are we talking wolves?
Wolves, I think.
Ooh, Wolfgate reopened again.
Yeah, let's not get into that.
Well, anyway, today the Committee of the Regions leadership is going to decide on whether to go ahead with these renovation plans. So watch this space. Before we go, Ian, guess what?
What?
It's Freedom Day in Malta.
Comes around so quickly, doesn't it?
It really does. And I just blew out the candles last year. It's the day that marks the end of British military presence on the island in 1979.
I should think so too.
Congratulations to Roberta Metsola, Glenn McCullough, all the top malts in town.
You think of any more?
I'm out. What about you?
No.
Well, folks, if you've got a favourite Maltese person we haven't named in our previous 2, let us know.
Yeah.
Who's the most powerful Maltese person in town? Is it
Roberta Metsola?
Well, or maybe there's a secret Maltese person pulling all the strings. Maybe it's you, Ian, eating pastizzi up there on your mountain. Pastizzis are so freaking good. I know that we always come back to food on this podcast, but genuinely, all I can think of now is pastizzi. I really just...
What is that?
It's the Maltese pastry that, on the one hand, is God's gift to delicious pastry, but on the other hand, one of the key reasons why Malta has one of the highest obesity rates in Europe.
Do you ever get confused between Malta and Cyprus?
Not even one time.
Okay.
Well, that's it from us today, folks. Leave us a message. Our number is in the show notes. Leave us a review. Tell us what you think. What's your favourite pastizzi?
Bye.
Bye. It's like the national food of Malta. It's genuinely delicious. You can have a pea one.
Pea? Oh, peas.
That's the best one. Give peas a chance, Dionys.
Hey, this is Emily Schulteis. I'm the Senior Editorial Director of Politico's live journalism events. On April 9th and 10th, we're heading to Barcelona for our first ever live event in Spain. At the European Pulse Forum, we'll dig into the most pressing issues facing Europe, from defense to energy to affordability to tech and AI. And we'll have some of the biggest political names in Spain joining us on stage, including Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez. Register to join us in person or tune into the live stream to watch the discussions on politico.eu.